Special episode today, a live broadcast, special edition for Ultraviolet Festival Dubai. I'm your host, James Locksmith. My guests today are three professionals from Dubai who I've had the pleasure working with, both music business and DJing and personal development. Arsalan Al Hashimi, Master Peak Performance Coach, who I recently reconnected with at the start of the year. We met 5 years ago through his amazing wife, Reem, when we were producing a morning rave for 2 years called Sunrise Nation. Arsalan has recently helped me with some trauma healing work. Tobie Allen of MENA Music, a music professional coach, DJ, label owner. His company, MENA Music, offers an array of music business solutions. He's helped me with a campaign throughout MENA region for my work in Australia last year for the Electronic Music Conference and Charl Chaka. Infusion Magazine, a DJ, humanitarian, an avid meditator. One of the first DJs I met in Dubai about 8 to 9 years ago. I've had the pleasure of DJing for his events, House of Africa, and of course the DJ Lab. The new pandemic lifestyle is slowly starting to feel more like the new and more like the norm now. As it stands, quarantine life seems to last for at least another while in big cities and is becoming clearer and clearer that our lives will continue to be affected by the pandemic for much longer than initially anticipated. And of course, the economy is heading towards a tough recession with so many looming challenges. Performing at your very best right now is crucial to not just keeping afloat, but to come out of the side stronger and more resilient is something that we're all trying to do. Today, we're discussing the rise of online streaming, both in live performances, DJing, the race for the new era in the digital age with online businesses, the state of the music industry and what's next. How far do we go for free online content? And of course, just this whole virtual hyper-connected life that we're all just being thrown into, our practices that helps us with our own personal focus and peak performance. It's no surprise that people need peak performance more than ever during this high level of stress and uncertainty. Taking care of your brain can be confusing and overwhelming at the best of times, let alone during this crisis. Gentlemen, welcome. I'm thrilled to have you all here today for the first edition of Ultraviolet DXB. We're all based in Dubai, so it's an honor to have you here. Arsalan, tell the listeners and the viewers a little bit about yourself.
My name is Arsalan Al Hashimi. I'm a high performance master coach. I have developed my own methodology called the Ascension Method through basically learning and getting accredited by all kinds of different modalities, where I've created a method where people can completely reinvent themselves inside out. We start with the mind and mindset and reconditioning the unconscious mind, really, and then slowly working towards the outside and fixing your body so that everything is aligned and cohesive. That's it in summary.
Great. Tobie Allen, MENA Music. Tell us a bit about MENA Music and what you've been doing lately, especially since COVID kicked in.
Hi, how's it, guys? Yep, it's Tobie from MENA. I'm a Brit, as you can tell. Been in Dubai. I had the privilege of being married into the Middle Eastern culture, so I have a fond connection to the region. Having 20 years experience in the music industry, I'll cut a long story short of when arriving in the Middle East, I started a record label called MENA, as the name says, which was distributed by Sony Music. It means together for those who don't speak Arabic, or as one, depending on where you're from in the Middle East. Like most businesses, you normally try and find a solution to a problem. And the problem I was having when I was distributing my record label and the music for the artists in the Middle East was I wasn't getting any, I was finding it difficult to get media and PR help from the outlets, whether it be radio, magazines, online blogs, etc. So because of that, I started MENA PR. And I am a small boutique, if that's what you want to call it, small team of wacky misfits. We're all musicians. We are all the weird and wonderful people out there, as Apple used to say, that try and we find solutions for artists in the Middle East. We specialize in MENA artists to get them heard, normally to find solutions to get more gigs, more sales, or more fans. And that tends to be normally with the gigs being the biggest one there. That's pretty much MENA Music, really. We help musicians get heard.
Excellent.
I think is
awesome.
Best way of explaining it.
Great. And Charl Chaka, Infusion Magazine. You've been doing a lot of great stuff, and you've been sort of veering off from just music as well. And I noticed you were in Zanzibar. You've been doing an amazing recycling project there in recent times. Yeah, tell the viewers and the listeners a bit about yourself too.
Thank you, James. So yes, been in the industry I would say, over 20 years as well now as a DJ promoter, in Dubai for the last 15 years as publisher with Infusion Magazine. And we've done many events, nightlife, DJing, we've done it all. So really been part of the history of this city's nightlife and how it's grown, over the years. And here we are today sitting in this new world. So yeah, that's kind of the main thing that I do. Also brands like House of Africa, which I started. I run a DJ school, so still very heavily involved in the industry. But like you mentioned, over the last couple of years, I've just really started focusing on some other projects, community projects, really looking at sustainability, community, and connecting, and health and wellness and how I take care of myself. So this has really been a big part of my life, and it's still a big part of my life today in terms of the things I put my time towards and want to grow. So yeah, here we are in Dubai 2020 with a new time ahead of us, a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainty, but it's time to find your truth,
Yeah.
Find your purpose in this time and part of this new world that we're creating.
Yeah. Well, we can all agree that there's been a huge rise of online streaming and both and just online businesses. Like you can see this whole digital age, there's been a race. Everyone's been really rushing and running to, I guess, figure out what to do and how to get themselves seen and heard and try to find a place in this new world. It seems there has been a huge excerpt of that. And I think this applies also to you, Arsalan, as well. I mean, even in your space, like even with the whole sort of free content and free services, I think this is a challenge that we're all kind of like, what do we do next? And how far do we give away free info and free online services? And I imagine that's the same with you. I know, Tobie, because I know there's also a part of your service that you do give out some free info as well. And the same with Arsalan and myself and Charl, who are still actively DJs. We've been hit up. And Charl, you've got your platform as well now where you're inviting DJs to come along. So yeah, I'd love to talk about this subject here between us now. Well, there's a few subjects there, but there's a discussion there to be had, and I'd love to hear all your points. Why don't we start with Arsalan in your work now? How are you finding that balance to give out free info and what have you?
I think what people don't know about me, most people don't know about me. In my past, I was a strategist in the government and corporate. A lot of my work was communication strategy and brand strategy. And I can't switch that off. Unfortunately, as much as I try switching that off, it doesn't go off. So I think what's very important is even if you're giving free stuff, I don't like the word free because as a business owner, first of all, you need to be aligned with your brand purpose, right? And then everything that is free needs to have some sort of return of investment. You cannot give stuff for free without getting something back. I'm not saying money. I'm not saying it could just be even self-gratification, but it all needs to pour into the cup of your branding and whether it's fulfilling the purpose of your brand. So in my case, the stuff that I give off for free, first of all, aligns with my true purpose, which is to help as many people as I can while I'm alive, right? That's my true purpose of my business. And that's why I segued into this industry anyways. But that does not mean that the stuff that I'm giving out, which is a 45-minute session for whoever needs it, it does not mean that I'm not getting something out of it or giving something back to my brand when I'm doing this. Of course, if you give a 45-minute session free, first of all, you need to look at it from a return on investment perspective where you're probably going to get a client at the end of the day, even if it's 10% of your free calls. That's one way you can look at it. But also the self-gratification you get from helping people. That's all a return on investment. So I think you should just kind of reframe the word free into something else, which is giving and bringing an exchange of value.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I guess, Tobie, you would be kind of similar because both of you guys are coaches. You offer music business coaching type services as well as music industry services.
I wouldn't necessarily say a coach. Yeah. I would like to just see it as a friend, just as someone to bounce ideas because of communication. A coach, I think, is you can fall into the trap of telling people what to do. And I think that's very egocentric because there's so many different ways there's so many bus routes to the bus station, so to speak. I think my job is just to advise and just say, have you thought about this, and sit on the fence and ask questions of people because a lot of people have all the answers. And I think when people ask you questions, it's if you can just guide them in a way rather than telling them, they learn better as well. People learn better if they figure out their answers themselves. It impregnates better rather than if you just tell someone you need to do this. In the music industry, there's so many different variables variables and different aspects of the industry. And especially modern day, biggest thing you've got to remember is artists are not businessmen. They're, in the olden days, in the 90s, you got the record deal, you made music, you sat back and everything was done for you. Nowadays, you have to be the DIY musician.
Yep,
and I think it's incredibly difficult for musicians. As I said earlier, they're weird, they're wonderful, they're wacky. I say this worldly, some drink, some smoke, some are up till 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm being general here, but they're not 9 till 5. That's why they're musicians. They're not in a corporate. They express themselves in this world by being creative. And the last thing they need to be doing or want to be doing is Excel sheets or registering their music for PRS or trying to upload music. But the technical side or the design stuff or the copywriting side, at the end of the day, they make music. So I think when you're getting back to providing content, as long as I feel it's of value, I don't see it as free. Everything I do, which Arsalan made a very good point, is knowing our why or why I do what I do in order to give it away. Now, my idea was 5 years to help 100,000 musicians.
Okay.
And that's before doing just helping you get a number one of things. So if I'm helping and serving musicians for the help that I never got, then I feel that I'm giving of value. Now, whether that be through now the podcast, which have just started just like yourself. So that's in the bank. I do the blogs. We do the ebooks, which are online. Now, some work, some don't work. But I invest in myself because I feel like I'm serving. So that's value to me. Also, if you think about it with just quickly, sorry for rabbiting on, with MENA, there's two sides. So first of all, I can help with PR marketing. I can only help with PR marketing, pretty much a PR campaign, if you've got a product. So if you've got a record, so if you're way down the line and you've got a product, I can help you market that. I can get you to the press outlets. We can get you online. We can get you on radio. What about all the kids that are not there yet? And that's something that I learned through failure. I was always trying to want to sell, but at the end of the day, I wasn't meeting my own goals. It was like a wake up, like the poor 18-year-old out of the slum, creative of Cairo or, Alexandria, wherever. That's where most of the inquiries were coming. But I had nothing to give them. And I realized that I wasn't doing what I wanted, wasn't meeting my goals or my needs to serve. So that's why I started doing the free, inverted commas, the content. Just basic things.
But look, it's also, and I think both of you could probably agree here that initial intro into your services is a great way to find out what the needs and what people want, and being able to give them something initially to find out a bit about that person, find out what they're after.
I think a good analogy at the moment is that before this happened, my shop window, and I don't know for the other, my shop window was so big. I was the small bakers, so to speak. As I've gone through into this pandemic and had realized my job is to make my shop window bigger. Might not get anything straight away, but when the time comes and the economy and the value and on a business level, people do have some finances and do need that help, then my shop window is big enough for people to be recognize MENA in the longer run.
Sorry, I agree there with Tobie in terms of talking about free content. It's what I'm learning is you still have to keep your brand relevant. And if you provide some sort of service or some sort of content, throughout these difficult times, when things come around, who are they going to remember? Which brands are going to remember? The ones that were around during these difficult times. I guess that's one of the reasons why we started these online streams, James, that you speak of, and I'm gathering all Dubai's DJs and putting it together and package it and, kind of like, let's stand together and share some music.
Yes.
Now the point is, where is this going and what's happening? At this point, we're just creating content, we're creating music. DJs get to connect and share and play, and it's an Infusion brand is there and so on. But the question is right now is, okay, where is this going to lead? There isn't any clear answer. I mean, one thing is for sure that whatever happens in this new world that will return is that online will play a big part. So for any artist or musician or DJ, it's important to understand, to learn these technologies right now and try and apply yourself. That's kind of what I'm doing. Like, I'm doing these lineups and I'm learning about online content and how to be online. I don't always know how I'm going to survive from this, to be frank. Where is the money going to come from? Are we going to get sponsors to cover these streams? But the sponsors are not releasing money anyway because all the industries are kind of shrunk, So there is no clear answer in terms of what the solution is for artists and DJs and streaming. I mean, some of the big guys are doing these big festivals and streams and putting them all together. And, this will be part of the future. I feel for now, it's just, on a daily basis, I'm looking at what's going on in the industries, what other people are doing. I'm having conversations with people like you and on this panel, to try and connect and see how we can, one thing that I feel can come out of this is, as a community of the UAE industry, is really maybe standing together a little bit more and supporting each other and helping each other, and also moving forward, how we move forward. A lot of the artists that I speak to and myself owed money from some of these brands, from previous work, and it really influences the industry to keep it going. A lot of variables. I think I don't have one clear answer about online and where it's going to going. I think at this point, I'm just following where I feel my truth is and where I can gift and share and apply myself and look at the trends in the industry, learn as I go along and see what happens.
Yeah, I guess why I wanted to discuss this today is because I'm concerned about setting certain precedents as well, because this is going to be the norm till next summer. That's the reality of it. Hopefully we'll start seeing some places emerging to open again probably after this summer. But the real kind of public spaces and going back to where we were probably until next year summer. So this means that between now and then, this whole online content and streaming is going to be a big part of our culture with dance music. So I feel that while someone like yourself, Charl, has a platform that's pre-existing before all this, can offer something for new artists or artists because there's an existing audience. So that's cool. What's kind of concerning me more is that there's this conversation and this common use of the word community, and it's being used in a way that I feel is, I'm not to say that there isn't sincerity from people, but I feel that there is a bastardization of that word. And of course, the use of the famous E word, exposure. And I think that some people are taking the piss. That's my observation. Now, there are cool initiatives that are happening worldwide, which I'm trying to keep myself really abreast of the trends of what's happening. Unfortunately, we can't do fundraisers. We can't do that because of UAE law. There are ways that we've got to work around it. And of course, we do have to work with the mechanics that people have. We've got to come together, as you said, because I'm being approached by a lot of people to provide content for, and there's got to be a change at some point. Our art and what we do is what we get paid for, right? I'm also working on a couple of initiatives myself at the moment to get a bit of a finer data collection of the projections of the money and the music industry economy that's been affected, to try to get more accuracy. There's a campaign in Australia and other parts of the world called I Lost My Gig. So we're looking at trying to do something like that here in Dubai to capture more details from roadies, production people, all the way to performers, to get more of an indication of the money that's being lost. So I think all these kind of things are relative. I think that we do need to experiment. Like even this festival here alone. We've called amazing people to come together to create it. Everyone has been absolutely amazing to produce this festival. And we've got the vision of trying to turn this into an online business that people and the partners and everyone that's getting involved will get paid. And I think that's what we're going to start seeing more of. So that's what I'm concerned about, is that precedent of free content that has to shift at some point. And I'm hoping that happens sooner than later. So,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
The level of free content.
Sure.
And we must get paid for doing our work.
Yep.
But if the economies are such that when the people that are meant to be paying, I'm just trying to sit on the fence here.
Yep.
Even though if they don't have the money, well, where do you draw the line? Do you just stop?
Yeah. No, that's a very good point.
We're demanding, we can say we're sitting aside saying we demand our money, we're owed this money.
That's a tricky situation I think we find ourselves.
It is, that's what I'm asking. It's an open question. I'm not saying there's any right or wrong.
I totally see James where I'm coming from. James, I feel you, brother. I totally see where you're coming from. As an artist and a DJ working in this industry, I need to figure out where my money is going to come from. And I don't quite clear. Just a point that I quickly, for instance, in Dubai, you can't do funds, but we've actually managed a way to sell tickets. Which is a kind of a donation, and it goes through the system the legal way, so people quickly contribute.
It's optional, isn't it?
Yeah, it's optional. It's optional. Yeah, if you want to donate to these artists performing right now, please feel free, So we implemented this, but it's not going to feed these people. And, we've not had feedback from it because I feel everybody's sitting in the same boat in terms of either holding onto their funds or not sure of what's happening with the future. So it's a tricky situation for us because on the one side, we need to create content for other people. And it's we're in this bubble now where it's like, okay, how do we get paid? But there's also people that don't have money. And the other side, there are people taking the piss as well. I hear what you're saying, James. There are people in this industry taking the piss. in this whole thing, that do have funds and are not paying artists. This is the reality out there, which is not fair. At least the money that's owed to you should be cleared.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky situation right now. It's like, where do we pull the pin and say, listen, no more? But at the end of the day, a lot of the industries around us is sitting in the same boat. So I still haven't found a solution, man.
Yeah. I think this particular era now, new online businesses, and I think everyone is having to adapt and change, and we're all kind of experimenting and working out how to sort of work with the conditions. And I've seen models, like you said, United We Stream, that's in Berlin. That seems to be a very promising model. There's also, I heard of one in Japan where very minimal sort of fee ticketing of $15. And what's great about it as well is there's a huge local lineups, which is great for emerging artists. I've noticed in Australia, what they've been doing is performances inside clubs, which people are getting the visual of an empty club as well, but they're seeing people performing from a club perspective. And as a visual and content point of view, it actually has a really cool aesthetic.
But did a great one. The Effective Ministry did awesome
yes.
With
another trend. Sorry.
And their dancers and...
Yes.
Sorry.
Go on, Charl.
Sorry, guys. Another trend that I've seen just on that subject, James, is in terms of the Zoom events,
Yeah.
Some of these brands are holding Zoom events only for their clientele, which is be 100, 200, 250 people. And there's the virtual, DJs playing, everybody's at home, and you can see everybody kind of like this conversation, and they're able to monetize that because people are either paying a donation or small fee to attend it.
Yeah.
So there's like maybe a bit of a sign of the way things can go for now.
And Arsalan,
I mean, look. This is like an unprecedented time. The worst thing is there is nowhere to look for a solution, right? But you can look at it as a bad thing, or you can look at it as a good thing. I mean, as you guys are saying, there are some really cool things coming out of this, right? There are some really cool inventions. There are some really cool collaborations, things that you probably never would have thought of before. And there's no time like now to push you kind of out of your comfort zone, because one of the things that people aren't talking about with this pandemic or the stay at home thing, whatever, is it's forcing you to come out of your comfort zone. And I think that's where a lot of people experience fear. And in reality, the worst thing you can do right now is experience fear, because it messes with your mindset, right?
And your immunity.
And that's another thing. This word community needs to be coming out of love, not out of fear. If you have a community that's based on fear and based on the relationship with fear and fear of the unknown and fear of all this stuff, that relationship is not really accurate. It's not really a community that's coming together for each other, right? It's something that we call an away from strategy and a going towards strategy. An away from strategy never works. So for example, if you are trying to do something because you're scared of the outcome of something else. So I want to go do my master's because I don't want to be labeled as stupid. That's an away from strategy. But I want to go do my master's because I want to be even greater. I want to help people. I want to have a higher purpose. That's a towards strategy. So if you're going towards a community because of a fear strategy, it'll never work. If you go towards a community from a towards strategy, then it will work. And this is extremely important for the mindset of community and whatever is happening. So I think this is an amazing way to think outside the box. I've had a few clients that called me like literally at the beginning of the stay at home thing, freaking out, worried about their jobs, worried about things. And we just kind of reframed their relationship with the situation. And they came up with a few ideas, and it was really good for them, like really, really good for them. Like you said, one of them was a Zoom call for their clients, and they grew. I had the first call with them, actually. There were about 20 people. And that's where I learned the lesson not to be the first person on these calls. About 2 weeks later, they had something like 150, 200 people attending these calls. Professionals, exactly the target audience that we're looking for in the F&B business. And it's been very successful for them, extremely actually successful for them. So there are things to do. There are ways to think outside the box and figure out ways to make this work. Abundance is all around. It never decreases because there's a pandemic or not. It's just the people that can actually kind of calm down this fear and have their analytical mind and their creativity work at 100%. And these things like kind of negate each other.
That's a perfect segue for the second part of our conversation, because I interrupted a little bit before, was saying immunity, the effects that fear is having on people's health and well-being is also causing people just to even feel somewhat lethargic. And it's freaking people out. Just the slightest little sniffles or a little scratch in their throat. Oh my God, it's the corona. It's all understandable and it's all relative because people are scared, and it's there and it's real, and people are getting sick. So what, especially with what you're doing, Arsalan, with your work at the moment, please tell us a bit about the kind of things that you're doing to help people with just some tips that they could do at home to help them with that fear. And yeah.
I mean, look, first, let's talk about fact, okay? The reason we're staying at home is not for the majority of the population. The majority of the population, if they catch this flu, it will come through, they will have some symptoms, some good, some bad, and it's going to go away, right? The reason why we're staying at home is to protect minorities and to protect the medical world so that they don't get overwhelmed. That's the only reason we're staying at home. And I think people aren't keeping that front of mind. They're kind of losing the reason why we're staying in, and fear is starting to creep in through these cracks, and they're thinking about themselves all of a sudden from an egotistical perspective, right? That's first and foremost, okay? Then we need to look at the science of stress and the science of fear. The first thing that happens when you experience fear is your vital systems that run your body kind of start decreasing or switching off completely because you are perceiving some sort of danger, right? And your body doesn't understand danger, whether it's coming from a lion attacking you or from you thinking there is something wrong. Your body always thinks that there is something wrong, regardless of what's happening outside, depending on your thoughts.
Flight or flight.
So the first thing you would do, the first thing you would do is sort of start understanding that your thoughts have a direct impact on your physiology. So one of the things that really helps balancing your thoughts throughout the day is something I know all of us practice and avid fans of, which is meditation, and all of its modalities, I guess. There are so many different ways you can meditate. One of the things that I'm a huge proponent for is keeping your routine. So it's very important to wake up early and sleep early and not have that kind of change. Watch your diet. It's very, very important right now. Eat healthy, prop up your immunity system, sleep well, take naps. A lot of people on the net right now are kind of like pressing this exercise hard. Actually, listen, I've always exercised hard my whole life. I've been a professional athlete. I know what it's like. But exercising really hard actually has a direct effect on your immune system and on your stress response. So in times like these where you want to prop up your immunity system.
The combination of both.
Sorry?
The combination of both, like having fear and then putting that extra stress on your body is like a double sword, right? Yeah.
Yes. So you need to exercise the intensity of your exercises and try listen, if you do it once a week, it's okay, and you have enough recovery time, whatever. But go more towards stuff like yoga and more relaxed forms of exercises for the rest of the duration of the week. These are the three main things.
Or shorter workouts shorter intensity workouts would be best, like a 10-minute kind of workout rather than trying to do a 45-minute hardcore workout 5 times a week. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that basically your exercises need to kind of ebb and flow depending on how much you want to affect your immune system or not. I mean, you'll see a lot of these high performing athletes, a lot of them get sick a lot. I know when I was doing Ironman, I was sick all the time because I wasn't, you get to this psychological issue where you think that high intensity is actually good for you. And most of the time it's actually not. So these are the main 3 things: mind, body, and soul. Mind, just meditate a little bit more. Of course, there's a lot more than that, but this is really quick. Body, eat better, exercise smarter, and soul, meditate more and use these type of methodologies to kind of calm your thoughts down.
Yep. Charl, I know that you have a great routine and you've been doing it for quite some time as well. Tell us a bit about what does a morning look like for Charl Chaka?
Yeah, I mean, echoing what Arsalan was saying there, throughout my history and nightlife over the last 15 years, there came a time where, some things happened and I was brought down to my knees and humbled a little bit. And that's really where the journey started for me to really discover, because I was looking for something and looking for help. And I have to say that meditation is something that had, till to this day, the biggest impact in my life to date. I've done many other things and ceremonies and so on, but meditation is the practice that I still come back to, So I really carved myself a really good morning routine. When I wake up, the first thing that comes out of my mouth, the first thought is a positive thought of maybe gratitude or love or intention, So I make sure that I talk to myself in a positive way and then I'm in a positive mindset and not take the troubles from yesterday and all the fear and all the stress that I'm currently dealing with to take over my mind right from the get-go. And from there, I would create some space I do also breath work. So I do the Wim Hof breath work, 15 minutes, really helps me just to alkaline my body, fight bacteria, and really puts me in a really calm state. And from there, I do my meditations, and I'm really, those two practices together with journaling and obviously eating right, like you mentioned, taking care of your body and movement. But those two practices, really helps me in the morning to bring myself to what I call, my spirit or my truth, so I get inspiration in these moments. I get insight, I get feelings on the things that I should be doing that day. What should I be following right now? What should I be doing, A, B, or C? And I get inspiration through doing these practices with the breath work and the meditation, helps to keep my mindset and it helps me keep focused. And trust me, it's not easy. I'm saying these things and fear is still coming up for me. Honestly, literally the last 2-3 days, I've actually been going through a bit of a slump where I really had to work on myself, my mindset and what I'm saying to myself, and not get too much of the bad news getting me down, So I had to go back and actually just really go spend some time on my mindset and my meditation and getting myself right and connecting with my spirit. And once I find my spirit and I connect, I feel empowered.
Yep.
I feel like these little small things that I'm dealing with, I see the bigger picture. I feel like I'm part of the bigger plan. Yep. The divine plan, and I have this power. I am the spirit. I am the God. I have this. Everybody's got this. Yep. So once I have this, I deal with my day so much easier, and especially in this time where we are right now, if I didn't have these practices, I would probably go mad.
I totally agree. Like right now, I've seen the benefits from meditation and certain hypnosis practices and affirmations and gratitude. While it all sounds, just great to do it, there's actually scientific evidence happening right now. Like when you actually do these sort of things, there's a shift. And I notice if I miss a day or even just on a day-to-day basis, like as soon as I feel that I'm going back into sort of in the head and I'm hearing the ego talk more, it's just like, boom, I know straight away that I need to go back in and just chill out and go even 12 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes. Some days during the week, I'll meditate 3 to 4 hours a day, really early in the morning. And that, man, just charges me for days. I understand the benefits, especially now I'm seeing those benefits tenfold. So Tobie, I mentioned before about coaching because I know your background as well is a coach with cricket. And I know you've worked with kids, and that's kind of like why I mentioned that, because I noticed that part of you, that coaching aspect comes into your work with your music business.
Yeah, hence by the question base, because obviously with my studies, and Arsalan, it's funny you say that actually, because I know I do Ironmans as well. So it's fascinating to know the mental process that goes into that and the stress that you can go under. With the coaching, I've coached sport as a side hobby, always been a side career hobby, but now because I'm doing my studies.
But you're a bit of an athlete too, though. You compete in running and a whole bunch of stuff.
I don't do it to race. I do it in fun most of it, and pushing myself.
And your own personal growth too, I imagine.
Yeah, I'm big on personal growth, but I had to learn that. I had an ego, and we all do still have egos. It's funny you say that. The biggest measure of my ego is my lovely wife. She get back in, and I'm not going to lie, we had one a couple of days ago. It got on top here. Nothing's perfect. We sit here saying we do all this. The reality is I miss my gratitude list. I miss things. My ego comes in. I work till 7 a.m. I don't get grounded, but I'm very humbled and grateful that I've got someone that's not you, Tobes. We rein it in, and we talk and communicate and say back to normal, but it's like that kickstart. Yeah. And I have my routines, but I don't know how you guys, Charl, with Jess, I'm not quite sure. Your wife, but she's my biggest judgment, so which is good. When it comes to coaching, I coach different levels in sport participation, development, and high performance. So it's 9-year-olds up to high performance teams, national teams. So I cover that and learn a lot, especially what I've learned in my studies and at high performance level. Creating a mastery climate, an autonomy climate, is proven, so the studies say, much better than telling someone what to do. Hence why I mentioned it earlier. Creating a safe environment, creating self-efficacy, getting people to believe in themselves so they can plot their own course. And you're just like a shepherd, rather leading from the front, you're leading from the back. This is my coaching philosophy. I'm more of a guide from the back, like a shepherd, so guiding people through. And so, when I coach, obviously relating through to when it comes to the music side of things, it's definitely coming to
that skill set kicks in.
And rather than say just telling people what to do, and then I just find it very dangerous. I find it very dangerous. Someone comes to you for help and you tell them this is what you must do. It's not. I'm not saying if you do this you have a better chance. I'm not saying it's promising results, and the results come from within. You can advise people, but I really think you've got to have a lot of self-drive yourself. You can't just expect someone just to tell you what to do and magic wand. And the biggest thing is failure. Embrace failure. You're not going to get this overnight. I'm learning this. I've done the PR year and a half. Do I know how the best way of contacting a TV station? I got a probably better idea than most of the people in UAE and musicians, but do I know the best way? No. And I trial and you error and just understand it's a long-term thing. And I think with everything, like whether it be meditate yourself, whatever you want to do, this isn't short-term stuff. This is, you've got to be invested in yourself. I've always said, know your why, invest in yourself, be a learner. We've mentioned this before. Are you a YouTuber or a Netflixer? You take the choice. Netflix, awesome. That's great.
I'm confused, both.
Do you watch Netflix to watch TV, or do you watch YouTube to learn? That's my philosophy. In the evening. That's what I meant.
That's a good point.
There's nothing wrong either way. Again, that could be egotistical for me to say, you should be just doing this. You should. Everyone's got their own. There is also a real valid point of downtime. I get that. But it's just, what's your first thing throughout the day? Do you turn on Netflix, or are you going to learn something? And
the key is balance.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying there as well, because there is so much information out there, especially in the self-development world, that there's this kind of like elusive or utopian way of thinking that you can never be negative or you got to stay positive all the time. And I think people get so caught up in that
it's not the reality, is it?
No, it's not. And it's not also paying attention to being a bloody human being. So I think it is consistency, but also learning to be forgiving and patient and loving for yourself to be able to be consistent, because I've been guilty of this myself. If I just, whipping myself for not staying on top of shit, I fall back. You actually go back further, unless when you're being more patient and more forgiving, then you're staying on top of your game more and you're able to be a bit more consistent. You can have 4 months of solid productivity and then you have 1 month off. I mean, that's okay, man. 4 months, you were an amazing human being. It's all right to have 1 month off. I guess that's something that...
I think what meditation and doing your gratitude list and your serenity prayer or whatever, your higher power, you become self-aware. It creates awareness. So it's okay that, I'm having this type of moment. I'm having a down moment. As long as you're aware of it, you can react to it.
Yes.
Also acceptance of the way things are. And it's like a practice. It's like a practice of anything else. When I started meditation, I didn't do it perfect. I didn't even want to do it. I was like, let me do this 10-minute thing, whatever. But, after a couple of weeks, I was like, actually, I started to feel different. And it's a practice. Like anything else, you got to stay on top of it, but it's not easy. And let's keep it real. Shit hits the fan. I do these practices. Like I said, the last 3-4 days, I was just going through a slump, feeling a little bit sorry for myself and the industry and not quite sure where to go and not quite had the motivation, So it is a practice where I was like, okay, I have these tools. I preach them. I do them. Really, let me go sit with this. What is this emotion about? It's not who I really am. I know I'm spirit and I'm not really this emotion that's coming through me. So I can sit with it and see where it comes from. And it's just deal with it that way and love it. I think the 2 words that really coming to light for me is love and compassion. Being a love and compassion for everybody else and yourself. And I feel even the fact that we are as DJs and musicians, people in the industry talking about meditation and sharing this is such a good thing, because I think the whole world is just really starting to wake up to their own consciousness. Yeah. And you can feel the vibration of all around the world. This is happening. People are starting to choose more good things rather than the bad things and choosing the light and not the darkness. And old systems are kind of crumbling, and it's being shown in this period, So, yeah.
Yeah, well, look, I wasn't going to dive into this, but I noticed you guys all sort of bringing up your partners. I think you're all married, if I'm correct. With your own partners, have you found it to be an important thing that your partners also share a similar passion to personal growth and working on themselves as well? Is that something that has helped your relationships? All of you, I'd love to hear from you.
I mean, I'm really, really blessed. I'm married to somebody that is very in touch with her spirituality. You know her really well, James.
Of course.
She's also a crazy high achiever, and she's just a brilliant human being all around. But that doesn't mean that we didn't have to realign ourselves over and over and over in our relationship. There are times where my independent spiritual growth, for example, was going in a direction which is extremely powerful. And sometimes when these things happen, I warn my clients that, Tobie, I want to say a really quick comment. What you said is absolutely correct. I think coaches that tend to coach and give advice really miss the point. I think what's really important is to help people find the solutions from within and have that solution come inside out. So circling back to what I was saying, there were times where I was going through my own evolution and I felt like I was kind of drifting away of some sort. And that's just a byproduct of you expanding and you getting better. What ends up happening is your vibration level, your energy kind of raises when you improve on yourself spiritually, physically, whatever, when you start improving, and you attract only that vibration. And if your partner isn't at the same vibration, there are two things that could happen. They can either elevate themselves to your vibration, or this vibration is just going to start negating each other and you're going to separate. This is just the law of the universe. This is how it is. I do partner coaching too, and this is something that we talk about a lot. So you have to answer your question, you have to have somebody that is willing to kind of not necessarily exactly match what you're doing, but just be willing to grow alongside you.
And your practices don't have to be exactly the same either. Like you have your own individual things that keep you centered. Your partner doesn't have to be a carbon copy of you. That's what I found.
As long as your values, your relationship values in general are the same. Some people don't want to grow. Some people just want to go make millions and they don't care about their spiritual growth or whatever. They care about that type of growth. They need to be aligned with somebody. They need to be with somebody that has the same kind of values. If you don't have the same kind of values in a relationship, then you're kind of going to drift apart. It's just normal. So from my perspective, personally, me and my wife are aligned in our values of growth and spiritual growth and stuff like that. And yes, that's absolutely multiplies it by 100. It's a beautiful reality.
And Charl, I know your wife really well too. She's an amazing PT. I've actually worked with her before and I got amazing results from her for 2-3 months. Tell me, like just quickly because we're running out of time.
Yeah, sure. I mean, your partner is a mirror. The things that upsets me or gets to me, just I look into myself and I see my shadows. You know, we've been doing that to each other for a long time. And also I've been very lucky. We've been together for 6 years now and we've been growing together through, we've been to these plant medicine ceremonies, which is really, really grounded things for us. And we both walking in our truth. So we're giving each other the space to be who you want to be and create, hold space for each other. Every day is a school day. We're still learning, and even just being in lockdown, what it brings up in the relationship, being surrounded with each other all the time. We both fire. I think we're kind of educating and teaching ourselves every day new tools to communicate better, to connect better, to be there for each other. And the practices that I do, she does in her own way. And, she's very active as well. And I'm really grateful to have found a partner that's aligned with kind of the journey that I'm walking on and learning so much.
Excellent. Tobie, has that also been a big part of your marriage and lifestyle together? You both...
No. And that's the honest truth. No, it's not. It's a complete different context. And this is just my experience. It doesn't mean it's anyone else's experience.
Sure.
My context is, Nez is my rock, not because of she wants to be a spiritual growth. She doesn't practice. She's got mixed religion background. She chooses neither, but she understands both Middle Eastern and Western religion, obviously Islam and Christianity. But that's learned her to be the most humble. I mean, she's always the one, we call her mother hen in the crew. Yeah. She's always the one looking after the boys, making sure, is it James's birthday? Is it Dave's birthday? Where's the birthday cake? She's one of the most humble, giving people, but she doesn't want to do meditation. She doesn't want to do that side of things. However, the real context is we were best friends for 10 years. So I've known her for 15 years and we were only friends for 10 years. And she waited for me for about 8 years, knowing that I was the one in her eyes. And she's seen everything because I've done recovery. And I'm quite happy to admit that because that's the reality of my history. Yep. I did recovery and she stood by me through all my errors, my ways, and everything beforehand. And ended up, I fell in love with her and now my wife, and she's still my rock. So just slightly different.
I love it.
I understand totally, what the guys are saying. My wife, she trains with me in her own way. But to get her to sit there and meditate and talk about personal growth, it's just not her. It's just not what she...
I mean, like I said before, you don't have to have a carbon copy. I think if you're pursuing that as a little bit of a codependency pattern, perhaps. And I think...
she'll give me a puss clap. So.
All right, guys, look,
meditation right there.
We're going to quickly have to wrap up.
Meditation right there.
Yeah.
Guys, we have to wrap up. It was so amazing. I absolutely loved talking with you guys today. I'm going to actually have you probably all on individually on a full episode on the podcast. Just quickly, Arsalan, where can people find you?
Website www.arsalan.co.
Charl, where can people find you?
Charl Chaka on Facebook. Otherwise, infusion.ae is the website. Yeah.
Awesome. MENA Music, where can we find you?
And Tobie Allen, TobieAllen, and MENA, MANA.
Amazing. All right, my fellas. Thank you, my brothers. And of course, head to jameslocksmith.net to find out more. Signing off.